1, 2, 1, 2. Find your seats, get comfortable, make new friends. Golden rule, sit next to people you do not know. We're about to start. We're just waiting for more people to find their seats. Africa Arena team, can you please help me usher everybody inside? All right. It's that time. Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you can hear me, clap once. No, guys, come on. It's almost weekend. I need the vibes. Let's do this again. If you can hear me, clap once. Clap twice. Can I get Amazon? No, we're going to do it until I feel that vim up in the room. Let's go again. If you can hear my voice, clap once. Clap twice. Amazon! Amazon! Oh, perfect. You guys are finally awake. I think someone's doing another check while I'm checking. We good? Audio guys at the back? 1, 2. Oh, I'm back. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at the State of Tech of 2025. For those who do not know me, I am Nafisa Abrams, and I am the Head of Partnerships and Content for Africa Arena. And we are so blessed to have you all here. I wish I could say I can see everyone's beautiful faces, but this light, it's making me look really good. So I'm enjoying it right now. A special shout out to my team. I think you can all give them a round of applause. Africa Arena guys, well done. And then obviously we have to thank the technical team at the back. Can we give them a round of applause? And then Amazon HQ, what a beautiful building. We are so blessed to be able to be the first event in here, and we absolutely love the scenery. I can tell you so much about Amazon, but I'm going to let another wonderful human being who is honestly one of our own unicorns. He's always in our corner, always motivating us, always inspiring startups all over Africa, and probably one of just, a really good friend when you need something done. Mr. Zitzman, can you make your way to the stage, please? Can we give him a lekker round of applause? Yes, of course. But don't jump from here. Yeah. I will say this stage is built for comfort, guys. I cannot wait for you to meet the panelists that's going to fill these seats, because the conversation is going to be interesting. Over to you.
Talk to all now, so let me take over. Thank you, Nafi. Firstly, thank you very much to come to Amazon new campus. Yes, you're the first startup event. You can say that for sure. You are also at the place where the cloud was invented, right, by this team called AWS in 2006. Wow, that's like, you can't believe it. So for me, it's super proud to collaborate and work with a team as strong and focused as Africa Arena. I've promised this team that I will do the 8-city tour one day, but I run out of energy, so I can't do all the cities all the time. Now, what you probably, just want to put some facts out there. My team looks after startups and startup programs. And the way that we've broken it down is I will look after the A in EMEA, meaning there's 54 countries, right? And if you want to be a successful startup, especially in your pre-seed round, your first round, then you should know what do investors invest in. That's part of the reason why I love the state of tech. What are investors investing in? What problems are being solved? So then you can make sure that you have a good chance of success. The other reason why I'm here is to just explain a little bit about the way that we see it. It might not be the right way. The journey for entrepreneurs. So in the early stage, it is literally proving that there's going to be a buyer and getting your team right. Then you get your pre-seed round. That's your early stage. In that stage, one of the most important things that you should look after is your costs, because you're bootstrapping. You're starting with literally your own idea. You're getting on the ground. You haven't got an investor yet. So there's a program, and it's called Activate, and it helps you get access to, up to $100,000 of AWS credits to build on more than 200 different services. Now, the context of that is there's more than 14 different databases, so you have the right toolkit to be able to go into the growth stage. And when you go into growth stage, what you want to really focus on is customer acquisition, because you got your seed round or even your series round, customer acquisition. But that you have to turn around and to say, how do I make my customers like my service, use my service, the experience better? And then you look after things like generative AI. And yes, you can build on AWS generative AI. And we've got especially programs around that with technical consulting partners. That's available for you as well in that dimension. The good news is you're in good hands. 80% of all the unicorns are building on AWS. Why? Because we've got special programs, a dedicated team for you to work with. And in Africa, it's my pride, I can say the same. Companies like Flutterwave, Luno, companies like Naked Insurance, Pineapple Insurance, Cellulant from East Africa, and the list really goes on. So you should really go back and think about, am I building and leveraging the tools in the right way? So please, connect with me anytime. I'm here to guide you on this journey, and I'm an absolute free resource. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zietsman. Thank you so much for that, guys. I'm going to introduce one of my favorite human beings, which is probably my partner in crime. His name is Dan, and he's the head of product for Africa. Dan, do you want to come up here? Please give him a round of applause. He's going to tell you guys a bit more about our vision, our mission, and why we do what we do at Africa Arena.
Thanks, Nafisa. Hello, everyone. How are you feeling tonight? Good? Okay, an afternoon tonight. I will say tonight, right? So, Nafisa didn't have the time to look at your faces, but I can say you all look beautiful, guys. That's something that I can say. You look fantastic. And thank you so much for the tech community to show up tonight in Cape Town. We're really thankful to have you all here. So, I just want to speak just briefly about Africa Arena again, because we know that when you guys look at us, you look at that event. Africa Arena is that event. They go across Africa. They do all these things. It's partially right, but we are more than that. We are a platform, a community that helps startups to connect with investors, bridging ecosystems, as well as enhancing and accelerating the advancement of tech in Africa. And the way we do this is that we bring together a tour that helps then startups go across Africa looking for opportunity for fundraising. Now, a look at our impact since 2017. When you look at our numbers, 3 things that you can actually look at is we are proud to say that since we started in 2017, we have had all the startups that participated at Africa Arena raise cumulatively about $884 million. Now, there's a story behind that. Actually, earlier in the week, this number was at 880, but we just found out that 4 our alumni respectively raised $1 million. So we can celebrate that tonight. We shout to Pixie Motors, to I think they're watching us online, they will watch it later, but we are very proud to have this track record. We are hosting we have hosted about 1,000 startups since 2017, as well as having 280 of the top investors coming in our events looking for the next unicorns. Now, looking at our ecosystem, right? Because African is really an umbrella that covers different products and services. First of all, we have Africa Rise, which is our Pan-African Accelerator program, whereby we give startups mentorship, we give them assistance to fundraise. We also have Digital Collective Africa, which is a community of investors. They come together, they have work groups, workshops to help discuss about how they can enhance our investment in Africa. And we did do a series also of events that are called VCIN conferences. Then we have SatLabs, which is our incubation program, whereby we take those startups, especially based in South Africa, to help them to bring forth their MVP and then grow till they can come to that pre-seed stage. And then we have a platform. You can actually take your phone right now and check on the App Store, on Google Play Store, Africa Now Wired. That's where we have our all-in-one platform where you can find everything about our videos, insight, podcasts. You can also have a look there at our alumni, and you can check their video, pitch videos, pitch deck, and so on. So I invite you also to do that if you have not the app yet. So this is a QR code. You can scan it. There you have our link tree and everything that I've spoken about in one platform. You'll have access to everything. All right? And afterwards, if you look for anything, our team will be there to assist and give you more information about anything that I've said right now. Now, a look at our tour in 2024. We have been privileged to go to 8 cities in total, 5 in Africa. We went to Johannesburg, Abidjan, Nairobi, Tunisia, and also Marrakesh in Morocco. And then we also went to 3 international cities that are not in the map right now, that are respectively London, Paris, alongside Vivatech, and we also went to Seoul in South Korea to bring the talent in Africa abroad, outside of the continent. And when you look at our Grand Summit, in terms of the numbers, this was actually the first time ever we had such a large number of startups coming together, and so many countries, African countries represented. About 31 of them. So we are very also proud of that. This is really an achievement for us last year. Now, if you look at our calendar this year, we are still going to kind of the same cities from last year, but we are going, I would say for the first time since we started this tour, to Lagos from the 27th to the 30th of April. And we're going to be in Johannesburg next month. Just showing you a bit of the information here. Let me just see if I can. Okay, the slides are not here, but I'm just going to give you a bit of information. So Johannesburg, we are coming there next month. It's going to be around the 26th of March, and we're going to have a series of events. Who is Johannesburg based here? Okay, so we see you next month, right? So you're going to see online, you're going to have all the information, and you can join us. And then in April, we will be in Lagos. And then you will also check on our social media. Soon we're going to announce our next event coming shortly in London, Berlin. Still needs to be confirmed, but we're going to give you more information, as well as Seoul sometimes in July. Now, for the startups in the room, if you want to apply to pitch, please scan the QR code, see one of our team members. We will be able to help you and guide you through the call for applications. And yeah, actually, that was a slide I was looking for. So the Johannesburg Summit, announcing its series of events, Founders Bootcamp, Wired Connect, VC Night, the one-day event that we are going to have. And then this is where you will be able to find us. And the Lagos Summit coming soon on the 30th of April. Now, a big thank you to our partners, AWS here hosting us, Jazz Size out there, Digital Africa, eSquared, that was a big partner last year during the Grand Summit. Nothing can be done without our ecosystem partners, key partners, and our tour partners. Now, I'm going to have here me and my colleagues breaking down what we did in our report, because I believe that's why we all came here for, to unpack the state of tech in Africa in 2025. Now, since 2020, we have been running that report actually, unpacking the data, seeing how Africa is doing in terms of in terms of tech, in terms of trends, in terms of investments. And our key mission is really to unpack the stories behind the numbers. So we have raised this much. Why is that so? What's the explanation behind it? So we really tell the stories behind the data. Now, when you look at 2024, it's interesting to see that Africa has raised $2.2 billion. That's according to Africa the Big Deal, which is focused on analyzing the data for the startups. And also Partech that announced $3.2 billion, which is actually a drop. So for 2 years, we have been in a decline, which is not a good news, but the startups are still resilient and bootstrapping and pushing. Now, you will see that when you look at the data online and when you look at data from these two providers, there is always that difference. We say, okay, this one says 2.2 billion, 3.2 billion. What's the explanation behind it? So you will find out the insight in the report. So we take the time to analyze what's the difference, what it is all about. There are some undisclosed deals that Partech takes, that Africa the Big Deal doesn't announce. So all these differences, you'll be able to check and see what are the differences alongside the data. Now, very interesting to see that in 2024, things have kind of stabilized after 3 years of continuous decline. So we are coming bit by bit outside of the winter. We are not sure yet, but we see how the trend goes this year. But we are very confident, and we see that in January, the numbers are actually coming high. So we are very optimistic that this year, finally, we see a bit of an incline from the curve. Now, interesting to see that each of the years since actually 2021, an average of 45% of the funding always goes to the top 10 startups who raise. And on top of that, since 2019, about 28 startups cumulatively raise about 47% of the total funding in Africa. So you can see by that the startups, a handful actually number of startups, managed to raise about 50% of the funding. That's an interesting insight to keep in mind. So the funding actually goes to a very handful of startups, and the rest of the startups get the bit of the pieces. But this is something that I believe will be discussed during the panel. Then an interesting also insight to see is Africa only represents about 0.6% of the total funding globally compared to the other continents. And to put it in perspective, Miami, which is the 12th city when you do the ranking in the US, has raised more equity than the total numbers in Africa in 2024. So that's something that we're actually seeing, and these are really shocking data that we are trying to improve, I would say. Then the Big Four. When you look at the Big Four, usually and every year, we see that they really have that supremacy, meaning that they always take about more than 80-70% of the total funding in Africa. And when you look at the Big Four, it's actually composed of Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria. And the others have the rest of the funding. So we see that those big four markets actually takes most of the funding in Africa. And to look at the characteristic, because we want to understand why is that success, when you look at the insight and when you look at the characteristics of every market, and we try to really focus, especially on my side, because I covered that section of the Big Four, focus really on a country like Kenya, you will see that Kenya has this ease of doing business that attracts a lot of investors. And even though some data like Partech says that, for example, Nigeria was number 1 and Africa the Big Deal says Kenya was number 1, the fact is still that Kenya has most of the largest numbers of startups that are fundraised. So this is a key insight that we try to portray out there to the other ecosystem. And then you look at countries like Egypt and here in South Africa, one of the big insights that we can take is the strength of our universities here that produce great entrepreneurs and also the big corporates that are present in the country. Now, a bit about our rising stars, Morocco and Ivory Coast. We have also seen a huge increase in the value that they were providing to startups. And we wanted to bring the spotlight to their ecosystem in our report. And I'm just going to stop here and call my colleague Thomas, who will give us a bit of insight about the top sectors. Can we give a round of applause to him?
How's the clicker work? What? This one? Okay. How's it, guys? So yeah, I'm the startup guy in terms of Africa Arena. So I'm going to talk a lot about the sectors and where investment went to and what startups got most of the money. As Dan said, usually the top 10 take about almost half of the investment each year. I just want to congratulate TymeBank for being the top investment of 2024. I mean, a South African for one of the first time, so really cool and exciting to be up there. So for last year, fintech was the dominant sector. As usual, it's been the dominant sector since 2016. In previous years, from 2022, I had a kind of a dip, but we've seen emergence, especially last year, with fintech taking 47% of the total fund investment raised last year by African startups. In 2022, just to give an impression, there was only 41% of the total funds raised. So there's been a 6% increase over the last 2 years in the fintech sector in Africa. And with that 6%, I would say it's taken a bit off the clean tech sector. So for the last 3 years, the clean tech sector, the clean energy tech and energy sector has emerged as a dominant sector within Africa, especially with 2022 being one of its most dominant surges. However, over the last 2 years, with geopolitical situation and the downturn of the global economy, it has declined a bit. Basically, this year it came second with 20% of the total funds raised, which was an 8% decrease. And it's slowly decreasing a bit. Then your surprise sector that gained a lot this year was the logistics and mobility sector within Africa that got 13% of the total fundraising raised with a 6% increase. After those three dominant sectors, you had the agri-tech sector coming at 7% and the health tech sector coming at 7% too in terms of the total fundraising. However, what's quite interesting going on this graphics that you can see is with the clean tech and clean energy sector, there is a term within the startup and investor circles called climate tech. So climate tech is a amalgamation of agricultural, clean tech, climate tech, carbon tech, all bunched into one. And when you bring those sectors together under the tagline climate tech, the total funding was 32%, making it still making climate tech quite an interest among investors, global and in Africa, and one of the fastest growing kind of amalgamation of sectors in Africa. So going back to fintech, and it's 6%. As you guys can see in this graphic here, 2021 was a strong year. It had fintech basically took 51% of the total funding raised during that year. But then we had a drastic decline all the way to 39% in 2022, and then a slow emergence in terms of 23 and 24. So the question is 2025 going to be the year where fintech gets back to that 51% investment in terms of total fundraising during the year? So one of the interesting things that a lot of people and a lot of the ecosystem have been quite passionate about over the last 3 years is our diversity divide and investing in more female founders. However, this year wasn't a great year for female founders or female-led startups. You had a total of 7% of the total equity going towards female-founded startups with a 9% decrease. Of the total equity deals sealed last year, you had 18% of those deals sealed were by female-founded startups, which was a 7% decrease. So then the question comes, as I said, for the last 3 years, the ecosystem, especially within the Digital Collective Africa, has been really passionate about upscaling investments into female-founded startups because we think basically it is it's a necessity to grow that sector, grow that agenda in terms of the really great startups, such as Sabi, who was your dominant female-founded startup of last year. They raised $38 million US. So it's a cause that we are passionate about. So last year, in 2024, there was a greater number of ecosystem partners within the Digital Collective that put up quotas in terms of the representation of investments into female founders. As I said, last year we did experience a dip. So in terms of 2023 to 2024, the amount of ecosystem players in the tech sector in Africa lessened in terms of their quotas towards basically investing into more female-founded startups. However, going to say that, we basically there is basically an increase in the ecosystem at the moment with a lot of innovation centers as well as new investment funds dedicated to female-founded startups. So it's not all bad. It is. I've got a vision that this year is going to be a good year for female-founded startups, and there will be a lot more investment. Thank you. Dan or Christoph. So I would like to introduce you to the founder of Africa Arena, who will basically give you analysis of what is to come in 2025 and going forward.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, let's talk about the future. And first of all, I would like to, it's really special for us to be here. First AWS startup event in this amazing facility, so we're really happy to be here. Thank you, Henry. Thank you to the entire team for your support. By the way, the quality of the stream is amazing, so I know that Many people are watching us everywhere. I just want to unpack a few elements about what's ahead of us. Obviously, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, but you can only figure out what's going to come next if you understand where we're coming from. And I just want to give you a bit of the predictions and trends that we're seeing. But before that, I just want to go back to what Thomas was saying. Come on, guys. You're the South African tech ecosystem, are you? Hello? Where's that energy? What happened in 2024? It wasn't all doom and gloom, that the funding went down for 2 years in a row. Yes, those who have been in the battlefields raising money, whether they are VC or startups, they know how hard it was to raise capital in the last 2 years. The amount of capital available has been shrinking, and we saw it in the numbers. But we got one major thing to celebrate as a South African ecosystem. We got our unicorn. For the first time, South Africa has a unicorn, TymeBank. Well done to them. And I think it's a major achievement. Nigeria has produced multiple unicorns. We have one in Egypt. We have several ones in Egypt, one in Senegal, but it's the first time we have one in South Africa. Let's build them unicorn, guys. You are going to build the next ones. So, but before we get there, just looking at how we're seeing the future of the ecosystem in terms of capital available. So, as we've seen, the numbers of the last 2 years have been pretty much down. What is it going to look in 2025 and beyond? Well, we are bullish. Often you see that graph that Dan was showing. We kind of see that we hit the bottom in terms of slowing down of fundraising, and we are starting to see the signs that it is picking up. There's a lot of dry powder still out there, and there's a lot of optimism going forward, especially in the founders community. We've got a couple of exits recently. Last year we had one of the biggest exits in Tunisia with one of the startups that we've been following for a long time, InstaDip. So our view is that the amount of money that is going to be invested in this startup is going to rise again. We see a double-digit growth this year. So keep grinding, guys. There is going to be good news around the corner. We can see it around the curve, and it's actually already happening, as I will show you right now. So that's really an important element. And what's driving that? Some things that many people don't see is actually the fact that, first of all, there is an increasing activity of, the traditional finance, the old money, as we would call it, the pension funds, and institutional investors are starting to look at the tech sector as a new asset class to invest in. For now, the numbers are small, but we're seeing VC raising money increasingly from institutional investors, and our dependency or the dominance of DFI in the mix of capital that is raised by the VC fund is starting to go down, which is good news. That means, for example, yesterday I was on an event organized by SASME Fund. They are bullish. They are raising more institutional money, and that money is going to trickle down to the VC ecosystem and to the startups. So this is really positive news. Number two, we're seeing a lot of activities on the corporate side. Now, I know many people might not see it, and that's sometimes coming from really beyond Africa. We're seeing, for example, from Japan, increasing number of corporates doing corporate venture capital, investing in VCs or investing in startups directly. And the important thing there is the exits are primarily going to come from there. If you look at all the biggest exits we had on the continent, they all came from corporates, okay? Whether it was acquisition in Nigeria in the fintech sector or the InstaDip acquisition by BioNTech last year, these deals are usually driven by corporates. Even here, Catherine from Knife Capital is here. They've done most of the exits to corporates, and actually a few from US corporates. And well done for the exit that took, I know, a long time and effort of Quicket, one of our longtime partner, to Ticketmaster. Well done, Catherine and the team there. I don't know if there's anyone from Quicket. But that's one of our own in Cape Town, one of the longest standing startups in the ecosystem that did a major exit. So this is great. So you can see that corporate increasing involvement at multiple level, at different stages of the investment is actually going to play a massive role. And it is one of these trends that is going to have really long-lasting impact and is going to really kick us into that new growth stage. So the other trend we're seeing is increasing specialization in the VC space. So you're seeing now more and more some VCs that are finding their sweet spot and areas of specialization and are starting to invest in a very special sector, okay? So we work with a bunch of these funds, and whether they're focused on fintech or climate tech or AI or deep tech, this trend of specialization you're going to see that increasingly, and that's great news because that means these guys really add value to the startup they invest in, and this is the ones you must be looking for, those that are specialized in your sector, and they'll get you to scale and ultimately to your exit. So a lot of bullish signs for us, and we're very positive about it. And the proof is in the numbers. The January 2024 numbers that just came out show that 40 startups raised 289 million in funding in 1 month. That is 3.5 times the amount that was raised a year ago. 3.5 times. So when we're predicting a 25 to 35% growth in 2025, it's not just, a lunatic prediction. It is actually based on our model that we've been working on for the last 5 years to look at predicting the investment on the continent. So there's really many hopes for us in the ecosystem, and I think we're now going to have a great discussion with our panelists to unpack these numbers. And I would just want to part ways saying, keep grinding. We're really bullish about this ecosystem, and Africa is at your service. We're here to help you scale, raise funding, and be successful. Maybe even find an exit for you. So enjoy the evening. I think we have a great networking after that, and enjoy the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I know that was a lot of information to take in, but I promise you it's definitely worth your time. But to make sure that you're still awake, I'm known for being a disruptor, so let's just check. If you can hear my voice, clap once. No, guys, come on, we did this. Let's try again. If you can hear my voice, clap once. Clap twice. Can I get an Amazon? One more time. If you can hear my voice, clap once. Clap twice. Can I get an Amazon? Perfect. So as Christophe mentioned, we're about to have the State of Tech panel, but I just wanted to say that this is the lineup of experts, innovators, change makers who are shaping the future of Africa. These are the minds that don't follow. They set the trends. They build the companies, they disrupt the industry, and they are refining what's possible. And honestly, I'm so excited for you to hear. And also, they're the money people, so stick close, okay? If you are a founder and you need money, these are the people you're going for. I also would like to introduce Anthony Cat, who is our moderator, and he will introduce the panel. Can we please give them a loud round of applause?
Join me. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'll ask my panelists to come out and join me so we can save a bit of time. But thank you, firstly, to the Africa Arena team for putting on another fantastic event, and to Henry and the team for hosting us here this evening at AWS. It's a very subtle building. You wouldn't notice AWS until you're inside, but a fantastic space. We're not going to talk about the numbers as such. You've got the report. We've seen lots of panels. We've seen lots of the data. I think we can skip over that. We can actually get into some of the critical points that we've been discussing of late, particularly in the conversation we had the other day. I'm really keen to make sure this conversation is, yes, there are some challenges, some things we need to get through, but actually where we might address some of those, not woe is us, but actually what is the shifting dynamic in the ecosystem and what do we need to be doing in 2025 to adapt to some of these challenges. But before we do, I am your host for this evening. My name is Anthony William Catt. I'm the founder of Venture 54. We're an organisation building bridges between Africa's ecosystem and global private market investor ecosystems, so trying to bring more capital into ecosystem. And I also sit on the steering committee for the Startup Act for South Africa, looking at how we drive more policy change to improve the ecosystem here in South Africa. And alongside me, I've got investors, founders, ecosystem builders, everything in between. I wouldn't do it justice if I try to introduce you all, so I'm going to allow you to go left to right, who you are, your organisation, and kind of what's on your mind tonight. Very quick, because I know we'll talk about it.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, great to be here. Lovely, sunny Cape Town. My name is Herbert Thuo. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Answer Africa. We are a venture builder based in Nairobi, Kenya, and working across sub-Saharan Africa. We've worked with over 500 founders over the last 3 years, and we've picked up a few nuggets of wisdom and lack of it. So hopefully we'll be able to share that with you this evening.
Cool. Hi, I'm Pumi Kerber, and I'm one of the startups. I run a startup in fashion, which is a fashion tech startup called WeCOI, and we are a marketplace for every fashionable man and woman to sell their secondhand clothes or clothes that they no longer wear. And yeah, we operate here in South Africa, born and bred in Soweto, moved down to Cape Town, and I'm quite excited to be here because Africa Arena has been a really great platform for us, and it has helped us to grow quite a lot. So there's quite a lot of things I'd like to share with the panel today.
Hi everybody, I'm Craig Atkinson. I am the founder of Green Riders as well as the Chief Innovations Officer. Glad you're also in the startup phase so we can hold hands in fear.
That's why you're sitting here.
Yeah, so our business is pretty much twofold. One is decarbonizing the last mile delivery industry, creating mobility in the sector as well, which is an added benefit. But something that's really dear to my heart is job creation, with unemployment rate being over 60%, especially among the youth of South Africa. We are addressing that issue, and it's a beautiful sector to be in to create these job opportunities for people. So, yeah, finding purpose with business, it's always been something that I've been, it's like a magnet. It's sort of something I've always wanted to be able to do and achieve in my life. And yeah, that's our journey. We've been going for 3 years now. So still in the startup phase. I don't know when that actually ends. I'm hoping soon. But yeah, we're getting there. Thank you very much, and look forward to this discussion.
Lovely. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Young. Represent 3 brands, really. My original business was called Thinkroom Consulting. I was at Deloitte Consulting. Any Deloittians in the room? And I said, if I can do it 20% cheaper, 20% better quality, I have a business. 15 years later, I realized that there's no money in consulting. There's no multiple revenues in consulting. So Thinkroom co-owns Accelerator, Grindstone Accelerator with Knife Capital, and that's the third part of my world. I'm a partner at Knife Capital, a VC out of Cape Town. So that's me. Looking forward to it, Anthony.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Dan, I'm going to dare to say, is the Menti ready? If you've been on a panel with me before, as most people have, they know I'm very well prepared with my questions, but I decided last minute to put a Menti up to kind of get a bit of a sense check who's in the room. So while they're getting that up on the screen, just quickly by show of hands, just so we know who we're talking to, hands up if you're a founder. Hand right up so we can see clearly. Okay, about 30% of you. Hands up here who's an investor. Okay, keep your hands up high, investors. Founders, you know who to go see in the networking. Who's a student here? Who's here to learn, engage, find out more about the ecosystem? Okay, cool. We got some great future talent. And then who's in the kind of ecosystem support space, advising, coaching, mentoring? Hands up. Fantastic. Students, you now know who you should speak to as well. But a good mix, I think. We've got a good mix, good representation between the panel. Okay. Menti time. I'm sure a lot of you have done this before. I want to use this just so that we can get an idea of things. So if you see at the top, it says menti.com. Just go to menti.com and then use the code at the top. And I'm going to ask a couple questions so we can get a bit of a sense check of how you guys think things are going. I can't actually see the Menti very well, so I'm going to have to lean around and stand up as people joining it. Yeah, okay. Perfect. And when you do join it, just press the thumbs up button so we can see who's on it. So menti.com, and the code is 47007947. Okay, I can see 2 of you. Okay, we'll give another 30 seconds. While you're joining, the first question, whether you've read the report or not yet, you've heard some of the slides, how are you feeling about the state of African tech from 2024? Going into the break, into the new year, how have you been feeling? Wasn't good, no real change from 2023, we've bounced back, we crushed it. So, okay, and also my panelists can't see this, so I'm going to, it's a grand reveal of me talking you through the race. So 16 people say we've bounced back, 5 have said no real change, 3 said it wasn't good, nobody thinks we've crushed it yet. Okay, so we're thinking we bounced back. We've started to kind of scale up. How we feel at the end of this year? Were we bouncing back? Did we feel better than the end of 2023?
I'm just bouncing.
Just about. Okay. Can we go to our next question, please? Okay. 3 topics tonight we decided we want to look into. Firstly, a bit of reflection on the investment landscape. Then we're going to look at sectors in spotlight, so what sectors are coming up, and then women and representation in tech. Which one are you most wanting to hear about? Okay, there's an outlier at the front here. 25 of you are saying you want to hear about representation in tech, about 15 on investment landscape and sectors in spotlight. We're going to talk about all of them anyway, but clearly the most difficult one is the one we want to talk about, which is great. We can carry on from our conversation last year. Okay, cool. So we've got a bit of a spread there. Go to the next question, Dan. This is a bit of a different one. What word will define tech in Africa for you in 2025? I can see it now. It's on the screen. Do I have to lean around? Resilience. Fuck yeah. Okay, I like it. For any young people on the live stream, we do apologise. Okay, travelling, reset, opportunity, exciting, revolutionary, disruptive, sovereignty, I like that word. Growth, trying to follow these, it keeps changing, not negotiable. Okay, resilient, agents, disrupt. Okay, momentum, potential, stubborn, empowerment. Disruptive, rising. Okay, cool. My eyes are hurting looking at that now. Okay, let's go to our next question. What's your first drink after the panel? It's all an important question, of course. Fresh water, soda, wine, cold beer. Snuck in my own. Okay. If you want that, that's going to be in the car park. Not endorsed by AWS. Wine. Okay, of course, we're in wine country. Okay, a nice balance. Fantastic. Okay, great. I do have one more question, the mentee. Do not pull it up. I want to go to that question at the end of the panel, but I think we can take those down for now. I feel we're nicely warmed up and engaged with you. I've obviously got questions. I hope you guys have got some questions. And it's not a bribe, it's an incentive, but I've got a really good book here, An African History of Africa by Zainab Badawi. I've read this. It's very, very good. The best question is going to get this copy of the book. So think about your questions. I am the judge of the best question, by the way, so you make it a good one. But please do think about questions you might have for the panel or a general comment you want, and we will make sure we get to some of those at the end. I'm told we've got 26 minutes. There is no way you'll cut us off after 26 minutes. We need way more time than that. So I apologize in advance to anybody who's coordinating, but we are not stopping in 26 minutes. Right, okay, let's jump straight into it so we get through as quickly as possible. Let's go into investment landscape. I mean, that's kind of the core function of the report. Investment seems to be that main topic. Catherine, we were discussing this last year. I guess where were we as we kicked back off. A couple headlines from reading that report I saw. Consolidation is reshaping both startups and funds. Blended finance is coming up more as a topic. What does that mean for startups? What does that mean for funders? Big news at the beginning of the year was US international development, not just pulling out of Africa, pulling out of the world, apparently, but what effect that's had on aid funding, international development funding, and what that means for Africa's ecosystem. It's had a big effect here in Southern Africa. Another one was the disconnect we're seeing a bit between grant funding, ESOs supporting founders, and private market investors, and how that value chain of support needs to be more connected. I think they were some of the headlines. The first point, consolidation. We've seen startups shutting down. We've seen mergers happening. We're starting to see funds trying to sell portfolio companies off, do more collaborative things. Catherine, you sit kind of on all sides of the investment paradigm. Consolidation, what does that mean right now for the ecosystem, and how does it affect startups as well as funds?
Yeah, I think I'll tackle that in 3 ways. Firstly, I'll speak about consolidation of funds a little bit, consolidation of startups, I know, just bear with me, and consolidation of ESOs, entrepreneurial support organizations. What we are seeing is that it's been rough for everybody out there, all 3 of those verticals in terms of fundraising or supporting programs like ESOs, supporting programs with startups, and the startups themselves. We've seen the last 2 years have been brutal across all 3 of those sectors. And what we're seeing is that some of the smaller funds, some of the emerging funds, are speaking to some of the larger funds, or vice versa, saying, hey, what about if we consolidate efforts, especially where there are funds where they're sharing specific portfolio companies, or especially some of the emerging funds that have been trying to raise for the last 2 years. It's just a bad time to raise for all of us. It's not that the funds or the emerging funds are bad necessarily. And it's saying, is there a way to consolidate efforts? Because we know a 2 and 20 model for a fund. For those in the room who don't know, VCs make their money 2% of the size of the fund annually. And very often when the fund size is small, there's just not enough money to make it work. So consolidations of funds, definitely. I'll speak to the third one next. ESOs are saying, how can we work together? USAID has pulled a lot of money out of Southern Africa, and we were at the same event, I see Nick's also in the room, with Christoph and Nick, and literally that pulling out of funds for USAID that was to catalyze Southern Africa with investment has resulted in those emerging fund managers using that money, you know, for working capital whilst they can close their first fund. Now the money's gone, and we're seeing some of the ESOs saying, how can we work together to help startups rather than running our own programs individually? And then thirdly, the last one is consolidation of some of the startups. I know this may feel weird, but it makes more sense for startups in a vertical to work together, because your CAC, your cost of acquisition for a customer, is so high right now. And we're seeing some startups, specifically EdTech, health tech, starting to talk together to say, if we don't merge, at least can we play together? We're seeing this, and for me, it's very encouraging to see we're not sitting down and saying, we can't fight this. We're finding very interesting ways, innovative ways of getting around it.
Okay. So what you actually mentioned there was interesting, that actually where we're seeing maybe not as much capital in the space, we're seeing that consortium funds. It's actually more about collaboration to support startups to that growth phase. You work with startups in an advisory capacity. You've done so much across the ecosystem. One of the things, I've had a conversation with a couple of people in this room, and we were talking about this a lot last week in Nairobi. There's a lot of grant funding that comes into space, which is really good to de-risk investment for VCs and help startups to get off the ground. But one of the big challenges we're also seeing is how the grant funding is incentivizing startups to operate and build their companies, right? They're building businesses that maybe tick the box of what the grant fund doesn't see, but are not necessarily making themselves commercially viable for what the investors are looking for. And the ESOs play a role in helping bring those startups from the grant funding to the investors. And there seems to be a disconnect between all 3 is what I'm seeing. You know, you work across that growth chain. Is there an issue there where we're seeing a disconnect? Are we not incentivizing everybody in the right ways? What's your take on that? Because that feels like this is a big gap to plug right now with a decrease in funding in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've seen over the last, I would say, 3 years. And the last 2 years, as Catherine has said, has been a tough time for everybody. But then I think it's been a good thing in a sense, and I don't think we're having this conversation hard enough, is that whilst, yes, it's been a tough time to raise, it's been a tough time to get things organized, there's been a lot of consolidation, there's also been the rise of what I call sexy startup failure, right? And this is the whole idea of what is good startup failure and what's bad startup failure. I think we've seen a lot of good startup failure. And this is also, I mean, I'm biased because this is also part of my PhD study at the moment. But a bit of it has been refocusing our efforts on what problems we're solving. And a bit of the grant funding actually created a bit of a skew where you had, you know, like in the report, you had how many startups are coming out of Nairobi. If you go to the universities, none of the guys want to be employed. None of the guys want to work for any of the big companies because they know they can join a hub somewhere, they can get 10K easy with just some ideas on a piece of paper, and they'll spend the next 3 years going through lab after lab, 5K, 10K, 5K. So you can actually survive as a startup in Nairobi with very little customer focus. What the last 2 years have done, it has reshaped the entire discussion to be like, okay, so what problem are you actually solving? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this paper thing that allows paper clips to connect to. I'm like, yeah, but where's the problem? How big is that market? And just those fundamentals that I think we sort of put aside because the capital was there. It was easy money. I think it'll be interesting with the resurgence that the report is pointing to, how everybody readjusts. Because what you'll find now is, of course, there's been a rise of angel investment, which we'll touch about later. And this angel investment is very focused on product market fit. What problem are you solving? How big is that market? Are you going to make money? Right? This is not Silicon Valley, right? So we're not looking for big multiples right now. Let's talk about the fundamentals. And the investors who are now coming in are finding a playing field that's a little more mature, where people are talking about those fundamentals, EBITDA, those kind of things that, sometimes you sit in a room of founders, they'll sort of put that to the side and talk about the work that they're doing and not really the problem they're solving. Mm-hmm. So I think going into the next 2 years, we're expecting to see some unicorns, a lot of which are a lot more focused on real big problems. And we want to see more in ag tech, for example. We are seeing a few startups that are headed in that direction. Of course, fintech is the obvious one that goes without saying. But in ag tech, climate tech, and health tech especially, with the failure of most health systems, we're going to see a lot more sort of customer-focused problem-solving startups.
Okay, 2 points.
Yep.
And I really want to get some tangible kind of outcomes. Let's go lay a bit deeper. We talked about their grant funding, and the university's probably been the extreme end of the spectrum for kind of more academic endeavor rather than maybe tangible businesses. If the grant funding going in is allowing people to kind of pitter along and not build commercially scalable businesses, how do we shift the grant funding toward being more commercially viable businesses? What role does and I'm going to pick a lot on Catherine in this section because around investment. You also do run Grindstone, you have the accelerator. How do we get grant funding to be more shifted towards commercialization of businesses that, say, a VC can then back? Is that gap there? What should be happening? What role does the investor ecosystem have to come down and support? Yeah. Or is it just fundamentally the ESOs and universities just need to do a better job?
Did you want to take that first, or can...
No, you jump.
Yeah? So I'll start. So grant funding definitely has a role to play. Of course, I'm stating water is wet. But what we are finding is that from an ecosystem point of view, the ecosystem players are not working nicely together enough. Because the ecosystem players in themselves is just trying to make ends meet, that any program works if you can get 10 or 20 entrepreneurs. I'm exaggerating, right? I'm saying it for dramatic effect. But if you can push 20 entrepreneurs through a program and you get paid for it, you do that until the next program comes. So the continuity and handing the baton over to the next stage of development, and the next stage of development gets more and more difficult. In the beginning, we do need grants, but we always say if everything is for free, the startups are not invested enough. They go from program to program, grant program to grant program, and you never really get the sustainability of product market fit. Does the customer actually want to buy it, and is it tangible? So long story short to say, grant funding has a very specific need very early on, in my humble opinion. Yeah. But as the startups, at uni level, you want a bit of grant funding because you want to get them going. But as the startups mature, 8 out of 10 will fail in the first year. And we have to improve that. But we're not going to improve that with just putting more grants to it, in my humble opinion. We need to have a commercial imperative to get these businesses through. If everybody was going to be a winner, everybody would have been a winner.
Yeah. Well, we heard from Investors in Growth. We've got a founder here
Yeah.
who I know has done some fundraising, done some grant pieces. What's your take on it, right? Because you've been building for 3 years now. You're still in startup mode, forever in startup mode. Just talk a little bit about the capital you've raised and the value of it, but again, maybe reflection on what you've just heard here and your take on it as a founder building in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. A very interesting thing we just said now is the vertical collaboration. When it comes to all startups would look at their business and say, I want to hold on to every piece of the pie. You could, for example, for us, we had a hardware company, we're a training company, we're a tech company with our delivery software and all of those type of things. And we're looking at, okay, what can we do? What is our strength? So we actually started narrowing it down beginning of this year. It's so difficult to let go of all the different aspects, but you have to be mindful at some point and say, okay, let me streamline what I can do and rather outsource certain things to other people. That also gives investors more surety that it's not just you trying to juggle so many balls, because you can't be an expert at everything. So we decided, okay, what are we going to focus on? And partnering with the right people where they can actually raise capital for this bigger ecosystem. And we found that that's actually working a lot better. Now we're streamlining and really concentrating on what we feel as a business is going to be scalable alongside various partners now, whether it's hardware partners or tech partners, for them to raise capital for a bigger picture altogether. So we actually had a chat about that with my chairman. He said, would you rather have, let's say, a unicorn split between 50 people or Nord Rand split between me and yourself? So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Let me rather scale this and figure out where we're going to go. When it comes to the grant side of things, we have been lucky raising grant capital, but it's always been with the vision of, yes, you do get grant, but we don't want to rely on grant to be a commercially operated business itself. So we strategize, and it gives people that are actually giving grant money comfort to know that it's not just going to benefit you and hopefully one day you as a business will be sustainable. Is it going to benefit more people outside of your ecosystem? And at Green Riders, what we've done is a lot of the grant money we get is we have raised a significant amount, but it's not necessarily for us to buy office furniture or new fancy laptops or anything. It's to help us grow our ecosystem. One day when we have 2,000-3,000, you could say, delivery agents on the road, and we've got all the hardware and stuff we need, the commercials make sense. So from a grant side, it's not ethical, in my opinion, if you're just raising grant capital for your own personal gain. You have to kind of look at it as blend that with your own resources for an outcome that is going to be sustainable. So when the grant capital dries up, you as a business have not just flourished for yourself, but you have also impacted many other people around you to benefit from that money. So yeah, that's been our strategy in the last 3 years.
Okay, and it's working so far.
Yeah.
Okay, Pumi, I'm not ignoring you. You didn't want to dip into the investment landscape, but you have got parts coming, so I just want to clarify that. But there's one more point I want to mention on this section, and then we're going to move on to a section where I'm going to come straight to you. I keep hearing blended finance. Blended finance. When you think about blended finance, venture capital is the mainstay, but blended finance. Okay, for everyone in here, what the hell is blended finance, and what does that mean within the context of the African VC ecosystem as we change and adapt? Going to put it out there. Who wants to kind of be the one that defines?
Who wants to go first?
That's you.
I knew this was going to come through.
I'm so sorry, but this is my
She was being
section,
polite.
and then I'll shut up. So, speaking to the founders in the room, I know you know this, but I'm reminding you. You must take the right type of money at the right stage of your business, right? And taking all those bits of money really simplified means a blended finance approach. So, disregard everything I just said about grants. In the beginning, you want to take grants, right? For all the reasons we've just explained. And so, friends, families, and fools first, we know that. The grants then come, the angels then come. And some of the angels will give you softer money than others, but hopefully the angels give you money with a safe agreement where you convert at a later stage when you know what your business is worth. And then once you have that, you may take some VC money. We had a very big argument a week ago between VCs around a table, too much wine, saying, is VC still risk capital? I mean, that's a very valid question to ask, because VC should go in, put the risk capital in, not ask the questions of, do you have traction? Do you have product market fit? The reality is that this landscape has moved. So there's a whole thesis to be written around, is VC still risk capital, specifically in Africa? Have we ever been? I don't know. And then once you start truly making revenue, not necessarily profit, you need working capital. Don't take working capital as equity. Do not give equity away if you can help it at that stage, because then you can get working capital in terms of either debt funding or however the case may be. And so you blend your finance. And so based on the stage of your business, you get that continuum going of finance. That's my little bit in terms of just be wise with the money you take and when you take it.
Can I just add on that? I think a very underscored element, how you talked about chairman, got me excited.
Yeah.
A lot of founders don't believe in the idea of building an advisory board. Now, this is so critical because most times you may not have the whole picture, but by just setting up an advisory board, just 3-5 people who you can bounce ideas on. They're the guys who will stop you from selling equity because you need the money.
So you're saying from day one, try and get some, even if it's informal, through mentors and advisors.
From day zero. You need to have those people who, not necessarily your friends, but just 3-5 people who you can tell, listen, this is what I want to do, and they'll tell you that's absolutely crazy. Don't do that, because they have a longer-term view. They want to see you do well. So an advisory board is I'd say a simple underscored hack as you go through this journey.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this section up. I know we talked, it was quite grant heavy there. The word grant probably came about 6,000 times. But actually, kind of an underlying point of where I wanted to get to was we have seen a shift in dynamic. We did see that graph where the numbers went up and down. I think me and Catherine were saying when the numbers went up and down, which had that big spike in kind of 2021. If you actually look at the ecosystem funding over the last decade from where it's come from, if you remove that anomaly of 2 years, which was an outlying 2 years for the whole world in terms of capital flows, it's actually been a steady increase. It's about 10x.
It's 10x. And that was, I saw the graph today. It's 10x. So that's actually good news for us. If we look over the last 10 years and we take those 2 years out, it's a 10x increase in funding raised in Africa. I think we should give ourselves a round of applause. Honestly, it's actually awesome.
And I think that's also the point there about that kind of just recalibrating expectations, right? We talk about wanting unicorns. The reality, we don't get that many unicorns of the ecosystem, but we can get a lot of centaurs or whatever, 100 million plus company valuations, and a reality and reflection of what the ecosystem can achieve and do. So actually, we have had this steady increase. Yes, we want more capital, but it's also a reflection reality of the ecosystem and kind of the global benchmarks. But I think the point there we're trying to make there is actually, if we have less capital, if you talk about USAID pulling out, it's not a case of that's a bad thing, but we need to be smarter with what we have. And whether it be, with Knife Capital, you have the Grind to Accelerate, which is a good deal flow mechanism. We have great programs looking at funds. I mean, I think Nick from Savant's in here. They built their own kind of investment readiness program under their fund. So there is the ability to collaborate with ESOs, technical assistance funding, and we need to think more smart about who can divide and conquer effectively in a better way and have more collaboration as a need, not as a preference. So okay, cool. Let's move on, shall we? Investment landscape, sectors. Now, the headlines I took away again from the report. We know fintech has been the incumbent sector, but we've seen climate tech, if that's how we're going to define it, a growing sector. AI is talk of the town, but is it really in a sector, and how important is it in the African context? And I think climate and AI is where I want to go with, both because when we talk about climate tech, climate tech, green, energy transition, we saw it with the different sectors there. Several fell under climate. And there's a big question, is climate an industry, or is it a subsector of multiple industries? And the same with AI. Is AI an industry where we're doing deep tech AI, or is it actually an enabler in the ecosystem? So I think I want to pick on those two topics a bit. Maybe it's your time. AI. How should it be seen? How should it be approached within Africa? We don't see AI as a big chunk of the capital. We don't talk about big AI companies. Is AI sector, do we have big AI companies, or is it something different within the context of African tech?
So it's really interesting because yesterday we attended a workshop based around AI, and it was South African startups that were in that workshop. And the biggest question that everybody had was, how safe is this? You know, and I was like, fam, you need to run a business. You know, you need tools that are going to help you cost save and accelerate your innovation and to make you progress faster in what you need to achieve, you know. And rather look at that first, because it can really help you to accelerate without you having to hire, because that's another big thing that we cannot afford as startup is hiring people. So I find it as a huge enabler in not just South Africa, but in Africa as a whole. And I would recommend every single person who has founded a company and is planning to grow a company to integrate AI, whether it's within whatever you're building, or it's within your strategy, or it is within your accounting. You have to integrate it, because that is the next evolution. After electricity and after information systems and hardware, AI is not going anywhere. It's deeply embedded in everything that we do. The thing that I am excited about is we kind of need also within Africa, there has to be a certain level of education of sorts when it comes to how we collect this data. I mean, where we store this data, you know, when it comes to access to, try Google any type of stats for Africa, it's really, really difficult, you know. And if we can start to have data centers that allow us to collect all this data, and we can apply it to our businesses, watch how Africa is really, really going to grow because of artificial intelligence. So I think it's a huge enabler for us, and it's almost, I don't know, like a savior to a lot of businesses if it's used correctly.
Yeah, I know ChatGPT's made writing questions a lot easier for panel.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Particularly plugging your LinkedIn profile. We need IA. It's very clear, and it's an underlying piece of leverage you consider. You mentioned there about data centers, so then that makes you think about infrastructure. What within our ecosystem is missing? Is it infrastructure? We need more data centers. Is that realistic within South Africa or the wider ecosystem? Is it skills? If so, is it supposed to be the students in this room that are learning those AI skills? So that's a question open, and maybe I come to Herbert, like, particularly the work you're doing in growth, like, what's missing to allow our ecosystem to fully leverage, utilize, and become a leader in AI? Maybe we don't need to be a leader, but just really utilize it.
I honestly think it's just learning. It's the last
100%.
I don't think the hardware, the tools, all that stuff is available, right? And you'd be surprised how much of it is either freely available or just as a fraction of probably what it costs. I think we're now seeing, for example, some of the grant funders who are friends of ours and some of the VCs based in a region enforcing it as an enabler of everything they're doing, right? So, you know, you could be in any sector, but they're like, how are you integrating AI? Yeah. And it's a very open question, and they need to go and figure it out. But AI could be the biggest thing that leapfrogs just entire generations, you know. We're looking at it now as an enabler for product development, right? Because then previously, if you were looking at even 1 year of customer data, for example, just basic, let's say, M-Pesa transactions, so M-Pesa being the, you know, mobile money payments, it doesn't really say much, right? It just shows, you know, you paid this much and that thing. But now with AI, with a year's worth of data, my goodness, there are 3-4 products in there. So now we're sitting in labs where founders are taking time every week, and they're saying, we're building products. You take them to the workshops, and they're building brand new products just by looking at the data. And that's just a simple example. But I can imagine in sectors like agri-tech, we're seeing some really fantastic applications. One of the founders we work with, they're doing organic fertilizer. And what they're doing is they're taking fish waste, which traditionally would be tuna, which is from our coast, The fishermen are not able to sell out of it, so they probably throw it away. They're taking the waste and converting it into fish waste and then into organic fertilizer. And what they've been doing is to try and prove that it's better than traditional fertilizer. They've been using AI to track the growth, which is very difficult to do sort of manually, and I didn't quite understand what they were doing. But they're now able to tell the farmers, the large-scale farmers, the flour farmers, tea and coffee are big in our place, that listen, if you go with our fertilizer, we have seen the greening of the berry move up 40% compared to if you use this. And again, that's the kind of thing even for a very techie production manager on a coffee plantation, may not be able to really do it on their own, but it's like, oh yeah, I like how you're thinking. Can we get more liters of that stuff? So that could be, I think, the way we apply it going forward.
So education is needed.
Yeah, we just need to get everybody in there. It should be mandatory for any founder to go through something and see how you're gonna use it to accelerate, your journey.
And I guess there's a point that you actually mentioned M-Pesa, and it came to my mind. And I think about, mobile adoption in Kenya is one of the highest in the world.
It's phenomenal.
M-Pesa, is what 80+% for transactions. And a big part of that was no legacy systems in place or at large scale where you had to transition a user base, because it was there from kind of the first major kind of banking that brought the informal sector and everybody together.
Yeah.
Is there a case for that with AI within our ecosystems where we've not got as much legacy infrastructure and other things? Is that going to be a dynamic? Maybe it's actually probably asked AWS about that with infrastructure. Henry could answer that question. But I think the interesting point there, right, is particularly for the next generation of founders coming through, particularly with capital scarcity, you can build so much now in AI. I'm in a learning circle with a couple fellow people in the ecosystem, and we have a bi-weekly call where we share what we're learning about AI within the context of our businesses. And each 2 weeks, my anxiety goes through the roof, because what I was looking at 2 weeks ago is now crap or doesn't work, or there's some better tool or system. But the point being, founders now can go and build and test things overnight, quickly. And we need to adopt more of that, and that means you need to be that baseline. Everybody needs to be learning about it, spending 30 minutes a day just reading into what's going on, which is why I'm doing it. It makes a big difference, and that's a differentiator we can have on the continent, is if we are getting more of our founders doing that, and even with investors informing our founders to be looking at that and seeing what we're learning across our portfolios.
I agree, Anthony. I know you had a point before I go. You go first.
No, I'm just listening. Yeah. So when the whole AI topic came up in my business, I'm in that generation where it's you kind of want to learn new things, but also like all these new things are quite scary. So sitting with, you Google AI and you're just overwhelmed and you switch it off or go straight onto Instagram. It's just too much. And now I'm just being mindful. So I actually went to my office and I found all the young people. And I said, you guys love all this new tech stuff and, all the fancy AI things. I know how to use ChatGPT and I use it as Google, basically. It's like replace Google. So they're like, no, Craig, you're missing a trick. So I actually asked them, think about our ecosystem. I don't need to learn AI about everything in the world. What are we focusing on? And come to me with tools. And I gave them all a task over like 2 months. I said, I'm not going to look at it because it's way too much for me. You guys enjoy this type of research. They came back and they said, these are the different ways we can introduce AI into our business. This is how we can accelerate it. And, they pretty much gave us like a vision board. But just going back to one thing when it comes to the education, if you go onto the internet and research AI, you just fall apart. There's way too much going on. And if you look at South Africa's education, it's already quite a stumbling block here, especially for people that are underprivileged. And it'll be quite interesting to hear thoughts of how do we channel the basics, at least to people that are never going to have access to, they're going to see the words or whatever if they scroll through TikTok, but really understand what does AI mean to them. Now, something we've been considering at Green Riders, like obviously we've got our academy, but where do we actually put that emphasis so that they can at least get the basics? And from once you understand a couple of the basics, you can start building into the different fields of AI.
Oh, I don't want to go into drawing on about using social media, Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but you operate in and around that space, right? Building audiences, creating narratives to sell products. adapting from what he's just said, like how do we engage more people in AI, particularly in the youth and the student bases who are going to be the next generation of founders or operators in businesses? What's your take? What do you think we can be doing more to educate them and bring them in?
AI for Dummies 101. That's that book.
So we use the two quite a lot, both AI and social media, and obviously there's quite a lot of, especially when it comes to educational content that we're looking for. We partner with influencers. That's how we grow our businesses partnerships, and all the content that we give to them is generated by a robot. So they've got a beautiful, perfect script, and we generate and then we give it to them, and they're super happy. They're like, "Wow, your team is so smart." We're like, "Yeah." So there's that is available. So it really is about how do we empower the partners that we partner with. If they can see how easy their lives is and how quickly they can turn things around without the use of too many humans around, I think it can start to trickle down to the normal person. But we first need that early stage of adopters, which is everybody that is sitting in this room, and then it's the partners, and once those partners get it, then it starts to trickle down to the balance of the people.
Okay. Going to part the AI conversation now. I thought we've covered a lot, but basically we all need to be doing more with it and using it. Climate. There is a couple climate investors and founders in the room I know here, and I'm actually going to jump straight back to you, Greg. Like, you have green in the name of your business, and there's a climate focus, but you're in last mile logistics. What does the term climate? Is it truly a sector, or is it similar to AI, a subset of multiple sector enablers? How do you guys perceive climate? Do you call yourself a climate company? Call yourself a green company, a logistics company? What's the take from your side being in that space? And then I'll come to other people in the panel to get their perspective.
I think that's actually one of the best questions, because for me, saying we're a green company, if we're a green company, I didn't say we're a climate company. I think all companies should be a good company. Because for this world to prosper in the next 30 years, and I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I want to see them in a world that's better. So it can't just be a green company doing something and yes, okay, you guys are the green ones. All companies should adopt some sort of methodology, going green or trying to play their part in saving this planet that we all live in. But in a nutshell, yes, we are a green company. We do try our best to follow that agenda. It's difficult, to be honest. If you look at South Africa's grid, we've got a really dirty grid. You're bringing EV cars, EV bikes, doesn't really matter. You're still charging it off dirty energy. There's a lot of debate, which we don't have to go into today. Is it actually making a difference? But I think, none of that is a quick fix. We're looking right now into, like solar charging, which is a huge investment. Hopefully there's, big grant funders in the room that are interested in talking about that. I'll definitely want to speak to you. But yeah, it's kind of with the methodology of, all our partners, we've got like 2030 goals, 2040 goals. And we're just trying to be ahead of the curve by not, contributing more CO2 into the ecosystem, thinking of the most sustainable ways that we can scale our business. Even today we had a meeting with my tech department, and there's about 200 bikes that we need to refurbish. And obviously, from educational perspective, a lot of people say, okay, let's just get rid of these things. I said, no, we can't, because that's not a climate-friendly company. How much of this can we actually restore? They're like, no, boss, it's going to cost us more to restore. I said, well, what is our vision? We can chuck this into a bin, or we can actually do our bits and try and figure out ways to restore it. Even if it costs 10% more, we have to stick to our core and our purpose. So, again, in a nutshell, I wouldn't say we're just a climate business. I think we just got the philosophy of trying to do more than just general day work, and look for something that's more sustainable for the future.
Just to add to that, because we see the whole point is sustainability, and I really like. I think it also goes down to the consumer. How do we trickle down that shop and dump attitude when it comes to consumerism? How do we Because especially for a developing country, when you buy something new, it's got a certain privilege, I would call that. But if it's secondhand, or it is green, or it is reusable, or whatever, it's got a certain stigma to it. How do we trickle that down to get the end user to understand the choices that they make when it comes to their consumerism?
It's also a brilliant question, but I look at it.
That's not a robot, by the way.
Yeah, it's two ways, right? You'll see if you follow our social media, we're actually going to be posting a show reel of work that we've been doing in the community. So what we've done with all our riders, we had about 400 of them voluntarily, wanting to do good. So we went to this Liesbeek River, which is just here, I believe. They did a full cleanup there. We went to the SPCA to help them repack their shelves and do a whole bunch of things there and clean up the dog cages and all of that. Blanket runs. So it's educating people, right? You can't save the planet if we're not passionate about saving the planet. So it has to start with us. We decided if our workforce can be an ambassador to do good, it should inspire the people that's what we're trying to do, inspire the other people saying, hey, if green riders can pick up paper and, help clean up rivers and do these things, why can't we spend 10 minutes a day sorting out our dustbins and actually recycling? And then it's also putting pressure on the aggregators. I know Amazon's got, recyclable material and when they have their boxes and all of that, but not everyone's doing that. So as a company that cares, we do that type of advisory. We say to them, hey, you could be doing this a little bit better. Some of our riders, we try our best to get them to pass that message on. Instead of just dumping something into the bin, hey, please make sure that you recycle this and enjoy your meal. It's educating pretty much the entire value chain, I think, is what needs to happen.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Craig. What we're seeing is, and Anthony, I actually love, now I see the question so differently. AI and green, if we can call it that, for me, is no longer a differentiator. It's an entry to the game. And it's almost like it's an enabler. Yeah. It should be first principles, almost. And it does start with us. And it continuously starts with us, and continuously talking about it in a way that it's not a vertical on its own. I don't see AI as a vertical anymore. I don't see green as it's an enabler. It's a level setter, I think. And if we can continue, each one teach one.
Okay, let me just add one final perspective.
One final bit, because I want to move into our final section, because I will say the timing.
A different way of sort of packaging the training, the education, getting guys to care, is that if you think of climate tech, agri-tech, and all this, the whole green conversation, AI now, you can map almost 60% of all the startups in Africa back to the agricultural value chain. In some way, shape, or form. You're somewhere. And if you can do that, then you link it to food security. If you do that, then you get a lot of people to care, because now it's not just you and me, it's governments, it's all those people who care about food security. And food security is a big issue in Africa. So if we can find a way to have this conversation in the context of, this will affect the price of food, the quality of food, the safety of food, etc. We might get more people caring as well. When people care, they invest.
Okay. Quick recap. So AI is an enabler, it's not the solution. Climate is not a sector. It should be standard practice across the board, but actually as well, it's multiple sectors that would come under that, but shouldn't be kind of all categorized together. It should be taught in class basically for business building. All right, cool. Final topic. Diversity, inclusion, gender investment. Catherine, we were literally on a panel talking about this a year ago and saying what needs to be done, and I feel...
Were you not on the panel in November too? No, Henry was with me.
We've all been on the same panels, having this same topic year on year. The numbers are still low. What are the solutions? How do we create more equitable society? Nothing really seems to be massively shifting the needle. There's some great initiatives out there. I think Women Build Africa in the room right now who are looking across the entire spectrum, not just capital, but enabling from skills development, Brighter, actually, the Women Africa did a really great spotlight on ag-based female founders, some phenomenal operators out there. I read through the report, but I kind of, instead of going broad like we always do, I'm going to be quite selfish and look at where I find it quite interesting. One of the things we talked about last year was about representation around the table, right? We talk about founders and capital, but where do we need to see kind of equality around the table in the other places? And over the last year, particularly the investment side, we've seen a lot of things, women-focused fund management programs, capacity building for that. 2X Global have just put their women fund together, 25 million, and we're seeing a lot of emerging fund managers coming out on that side. And so clearly that is a focus area at the moment. So I'm gonna start there, and so let's look at that side of the table. I want to talk about funds, but then I want to talk about the importance of angel investors, women investing in women at that early stage. Catherine, you sit on all sides of the table. We've talked about this before, so I'm going to go straight with you. What needs to be done when it comes to venture funds in terms of enabling more women into key roles, running those funds? What have you seen so far that seems to be working, and what more can be done?
Sure. I think 3 or 4 ways that venture funds can really help immediately, and what we've really been driving in big ways. The first one is who we invest in. So I am always saying that this should not be a thing of empowering women. It should be a balance. There's a Harvard Business Review that says if you have balanced teams, 50-50, male, female, they bring you 2.5 times more money. VC, right? 2.5 times more money than an unbalanced team. So this is not about all women team or an all male team. It is about balanced team. So from a founder perspective, it is really absolutely in our control who we invest in. What we find within the VC world is that it's difficult when people don't look like me. We know that saying, right? So how do we make sure that we invest in female and male founders alike? There are 2 ways we can do this. The teams in the VCs that we employ, so those within our world, so do we have representation of males and females in our teams equally, right? And again, it's about the balance. It's about the diversity of thought around the table. Please God, I never want to be in an all-women team only. I would not be able to cope because I need the challenge and the diversity of thought to make a better decision. So that's in terms of teams. The third one is our investment committees. What do our investment committees look like? Because as much as I bring a deal to the table, if the IC says no, the IC says no. What does the IC look like? People like me, do they look like me? Can they understand the decisions that they have to make when that founder is represented? We're out of time, so I'll be quick. I'm sure that you've seen the study where they presented to an IC, they presented cases to an IC where it didn't show the gender. Right? It was only presentation. Guess what? When they saw who presented versus a biased IC versus just reading it, the allocations of funding was so different, right? So we all have our biases. When I saw the Mentimeter and I saw the biggest topic to want to be discussed as females, what did my bias say to me? Those who don't know me, I'm always honest. My bias said, all the females actually went to Mentimeter and the males didn't participate in Mentimeter. That was my bias, right? So what do those around the table look like from an IC? And then the third one, the last one, the fourth one, in my opinion, would be what do we do with boards on portfolio companies, right? And that is more for portfolio companies to become more diverse in different ways. So emerging fund managers, that's the very last one in terms of VC space. There's been a lot of good work where we are now getting fund managers who are more balanced, right? Where females are coming through and making those decisions. But as you said, Pumi, so beautifully when we prepared for this, and I went and thought about that last night actually, it's not about the soft things only. It's about how do women show up in business versus how men show up. I can go on forever. I'm going to stop.
We will come to that topic because it is on here.
And I want you to answer.
And I was going to go beeline straight to you when you come to that. Okay, well, one of the things I was chatting to somebody earlier on about was kind of the role of angel investors in the ecosystem. and they rightly so pointed to a report Viridian did, which is an ecosystem building organisation actually based here in Cape Town. Women investors in Africa, the barriers and the enablers. And the topic point that got emphasised for me was when you have more women angels investing into women, they understand those dynamics, but actually when you put them in a collective environment, they're more likely to speak up and engage and have the dialogues around business building and investing. And with the African Angel Academy, which is an initiative helping train first-time angels to invest into startups, they did an all-women's cohort, and apparently there was a massive shift in how the women discuss, contribute to conversations because they had that environment. Now, the counter side of that is, having spoke to a number of women-led startups, they don't actually like being in all-women programs because they feel it puts them almost at a biasy that you're in a women's program, therefore you're treated differently when it comes to conversation investment otherwise. But there is clearly a need for an environment where you can have those more candid, open conversations and people feel they can do that. I don't know if that's a question, it's more of a statement of observation, but is there, from the angel investing early stage side of things, is there any comments, observations from anybody here on the panel?
Well, I'll tell you what we've seen, and to the point you mentioned around blended finance. I think we also need to change the lens we're using when we're talking about access to capital. Because, for example, in Kenya, for example, in terms of traditional finance, so this is now, you're not talking about VC, you're talking about angel, maybe friends and family, even traditional bank loans, and even digital finance and fintech programs and platforms. They not only, women not only have greater access, but they also are higher performing than their male counterparts. So also even just the lens we're using in terms of access to capital may need to shift. Because yes, in VC, we're not doing very well. But you'll find in other classes or other areas where maybe the bias is more focused on the performance on the business. And women will always outperform. This is fact. They outperform their male counterparts in terms of paying back, business performance when given the opportunity. So this is not even something that we're debating. So the question is then maybe we should break down the classes a little bit so that maybe when we blend it will look different. Maybe.
So if we look at venture capital in its traditional sense, we might say it's not an accurate reflection of where capital's going in the sense that. And I know this from doing some research we did last year on this and did a report on it. And one of the things that we found was women founders traditionally tend to raise less and have a longer frequency of time between raising, but there's often capital gap needs between those institutional rounds, which means sometimes actually it makes it disproportionately bad, but actually they need different types of capital. And I think a great example reaction that 54 Collective, formerly founded Factor Africa, identified that, and they put a loan facility in place to enable some of the women founders they invested, that knowing there was going to be these gaps between institutional rounds, so we can help capitalize you. So also that kind of rethinking around types of funding, the types of businesses as well that are being built. Sometimes they're not as capital intensive as some other businesses that are built by male counterparts. We were chatting about this whole idea of the difference between men and women, how they operate in the space. And you had a quite good question, what can women learn from men, dare I say? But make it more probably, what are some of the practical things male counterparts do that women don't do as often, but actually could be applied in a difference? You suggested the question, but I hope you've got a good answer for it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have attended these events, and the gender equality when it comes to the investment space is always a topic. And we've had the pledges, and you can see with the numbers, it's just not moving, So we kind of need to move forward from that and ask ourselves, okay, cool, what can we do differently that we haven't done before? Because, tick boxes, that's not working, how do we move on? And if there's only 7% of the investment went to females, what did the 93 do right that we can learn from and that we can adapt? I'm not saying we want to be men. Hell no, I don't want to grow hair on my face. But I'm saying, what do we learn from our male counterparts, and what can we adapt into our own businesses? Is our house in order when it comes to the metrics that the investors are looking for? Is our relationship building skills that the males have in order? Is our risk taking and being bullish about the numbers that we present in order, and can we back them up? startup? Are we the best salesperson for the company that we're trying to sell to the investors? You know, there's all these things that these guys clearly have, and they've got right, and they managed to do that. I don't know in the VC space if that is the same personality traits that you guys are seeing, but I'm like, okay, pledges are not working. What do we do as females, and what do we learn? And it's also the other way around with the males. It's like, if you've raised and you know a startup, please share. You know, share what you did right and share what you did wrong. Share your contacts, you know, and let's cross-pollinate, because we are struggling out here.
Yeah. I have to jump in quickly. What we're seeing with fundraisers, and I actually want to ask you this question. Just today, we had just disbursed follow-on funding to a startup. The use of funds was very clear. This is the money, that's what it will be used for. Signed in contract. Monthly catch-up with a startup today, and 20% of the last disbursement did absolutely not go to contract. Male or female founder? I'm trying to be dramatic for effect, right? Male founder. Another quick example, raising, we're on third last gate for IC. We get it through IC, and there is a change in forecasted revenue earlier this year because of something that happened in the market. Founder calls and says, my revenue projections have changed. I know we're about to sign. Is the deal still on? Male or female founder?
Male.
Female. Do you understand the risk? We see this all the time. The males fake it till they make it. The women already say they're not going to make it. But I'm being serious from a business perspective. And I want to take them by the shoulders and say, we freaking fake it till we make it, right? Get the hell on with it. But I get so passionate about this because we're blocking ourselves. I'm off my soapbox.
This is where Craig's like, I'm not faking it, I promise.
No, but you don't seem to fake it.
No, so in my team, I mean, I'm the founder, but in my founding teams, I actually don't like I'm a founder. It wasn't me. There's more people to build an ecosystem. We have more females in our company than there are males in managerial roles, in senior roles as well. Our new MD, which we'll announce in the next month, is actually a female. Very proud to have her above me and be able to give me orders of what I need to be doing next. A founder is just a founder. You know, you need operators and you need people with vision. But I've got an interesting take on this. Isn't there a psychological problem here? So let's say I have a Toyota Bakkie, and I say to someone, okay, do you want to have my 2010 Toyota Bakkie? The value of that Bakkie is still worth something because they know that Toyota's been around for all these years. Or I say, here's a new EV car that's come into the ecosystem. Do you want to invest in this? They want to look at something that's been around for long. Now, this is an unpopular opinion. Isn't there maybe a psychological barrier with females that are only really starting now to be these entrepreneurs of the mindsets and these big tycoons and whatever else, where they can't guarantee that in 10 years that business is going to be sustainable? And it's irrational, completely irrational. But that's something I actually chatted to one of my directors about. I said, I think that's where there's a bottleneck, is that the trust that a woman would be able to have this big business like Elon Musk and keep something going for 10, 20 years.
You're absolutely right. The research shows it, and there's just not enough female role models to model that. You're absolutely right. Research categorically, quantitatively shows it,
Very sad situation.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, I was going to say that I want a topic to be discussed after this in the networking. I feel this is the topic to discuss and kind of get that thoughts and discourse. Another reason being is we've technically run out of time. We're now -2 seconds. I haven't got to Q&A with the audience yet. But this happens every time we do a panel, and Africarena always invite me back to do a panel. So I'm sorry, Henry, we're going to take a little bit more time. We're going to end questions in the panel. Firstly, thank you so much, guys, for the contributions. We'll have a round of applause for our... Now remember, The book is up for grabs. It's a very good book. I'll get all of the panelists to sign it, so it's a very unique book. I want to take a couple questions. Do we have a roaming microphone, or has somebody got to come right up the front and ask here? We got a roaming microphone. Okay, fantastic. Well, hands up if you've got a question. I'm going to go. Okay, fantastic. What we're going to do is we're going to do quick fire. So we're going to take all the questions. Well, not all of them. We'll take a couple. So the gentleman here with the red top on, yeah, fantastic. We can send the microphone over to you. Just say who you are, your organisation you're from, and your question.
And?
Yeah, you go, Oliver.
We have 10 minutes. Where's that come from?
Thank you so very much to our panelists for the great submissions and inputs. My name is Oliver. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a couple of companies, including Africa Rising, Azania VP. I'm not going to mention all of them. I've got a couple of questions just to manage
You can have
time.
one question. Then make it your best question.
How do we make Africa ready? That's the question. The comment is, I wouldn't say fake it until you make it. I would say show up until you make it. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, it's a broad question. How do we make Africa ready? What, can you give us a little bit more something specific? A little bit more specific than just how do we make Africa ready?
We tend to become just consumers of whatever comes from Europe, America, and so forth. We want to be the producers. We want to value it. We want to be the producers of AI. We want to bring solutions by Africans for Africans. So what we are saying is that we as Africans, are we ready for AI? And how do we make AI, how do we leverage on AI to develop entrepreneurship in Africa and build our
localized
economy?
innovation, not imported innovation, which you're broadly saying. Okay.
Thank you so
Can we also
much.
keep the lights up? It was
Thank
quite
you.
nice for the Q&A just to have all the lights up to see everybody. Cool. Quick fire. Take on that.
Can I go?
Yeah, go.
Mine's going to be a quick answer. Don't sell art. Don't take your ideas and your businesses and wait for some tycoon to come from other sides of all over the planet just to come here and take your idea and scale it. We need to keep it localized and focus on ourselves for a change versus just selling out to other countries.
Yeah.
So I would really, Africa as a whole is a very young population. And the beauty with youth is the ability to absorb info and new info as well. And for me, it starts with education, and that's the biggest problem that we have. And across all the context that we had here, education is still very much key. Do we take stuff from Europe or the US and, in my opinion, take it to your benefits that's going to educate you? If you've got a foundation that exists already, take it to your benefit and empower yourself, because we can't have it in our local economies or administrations or governments. But once you are educated, how do you use that education to empower everybody else around you? And I think that would be the best way to get Africa out of where we are.
Fantastic. Last bit. Yeah, go on.
I think for me, it's the biggest difficulty we have as Africa is we're poor storytellers. Do you know how much? Do you know what percent of books in the world are written by Africans? Quick guess.
Got one here. Who lives in England knows. So.
It's 4%. So our story. What do they say about the story of the hunter? Something about the hunter and the hunter story being told by the hunter. That one, right? So we have to get better at storytelling. And storytelling means you pack your imposter syndrome, which you all have, and you're just like, this is it. This is what we're doing. This is the best thing, and we're doing it. And you tell everybody, and when they ask you, who told you, who gave you the authority to be this authority? You're like, me?
Exactly.
My people? They said it's good enough. It's to the world. So we just need to be better storytellers.
I've not seen any Americans apologize for being American.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
And I don't understand why we apologize to be Africans. I don't understand it. Let's show up. I like that every time.
Great first question. You're in the lead, okay? Apparently this is your book. I'm just going to go because I saw hands jumping up. The gentleman to the right who was on the same table. I'm just going by who had hands quickly up. We'll try and get through as many as we can. We
One,
do have
two.
Right.
time.
So I'm glad, actually. My name is Daniel. I'm an ecosystem builder. I work with startups and we help them raise funds. But I'm glad about the comment that Catherine just made now about being proud, American, never apologizing. But the thing we see in the ecosystem is that a lot of the times on the continent, there are a lot of accelerators, a lot of programs, a lot of investors are trying to copy models that have worked overseas, in the US, in Europe, and we try to implement it exactly as is on the continent, and we wonder why we keep on failing. We wonder why startups never get to unicorn state. We wonder why they never get to exiting. And so I think the question I want to pose to the panel is, why are we not talking about developing innovative ways of supporting the funders? Because Africa does not have an entrepreneurial spirit problem. It has a funding system problem.
Yeah. Any DFIs in the room? Do you want to take that question?
I can jump in there just to kickstart it. You're absolutely right about that. And I found that a lot of countries, they might have more competition of founders and startups, right? Like in Europe, there'll be more people eager to make it, where in Africa you might find quite a bit less. But we have a lot more challenges. I mean, if you just look at infrastructure problems, load shedding, crime, policies, so much red tape, where they maybe don't have those barriers. So it's tough out here. It's not as easy to become successful. And I guess the gamble from an investor is they're going to take all of those things into consideration, saying, I mean, we get asked those questions all the time. What happens when there's load shedding? What must I say? We have to find solutions of going, completely off grid. But I think what makes Africans great is that we are resilient. We're not scared of these type of challenges, and we just keep pushing forward. We might not be the unicorns like the Americans and people in Europe, but we sure work harder. We sure have a lot more innovation. But yeah, it's getting those policies and everything else in our favor to help us scale.
Well, in that question, we talked about owning the narrative, shaping the narrative, right? I keep hearing unicorns, right? We're not producing enough unicorns, but does the ecosystem need to produce unicorns, or is it different types of exits? And understanding what our narrative needs to be. I like to think I'm adopted African on the continent living here by saying that. But the serious point is, it's like, okay, we see $100 million exits. That's an incredible win. But we don't talk about it in the same spectrum. So actually defining what the narrative needs to be as well by comparison to our peers in Europe, the US, or wherever it might be, different landscape, different ecosystem. That doesn't make it a bad thing. We just need to clarify the narrative of why that is.
Yeah. I'll jump in here just because from a knife perspective, we're really all about the exits, and it's not necessarily the unicorns. We don't even know. That's a debate by itself whether we'll ever get there with our portfolio companies from a unicorn perspective. But the smaller exits really matter. Mm-hmm. They matter a lot, and they're helping the continent, and they're helping the narrative, and they're helping what we can achieve, because we typically exit, I think Christoph said it earlier on, to international American big corporations, and that helps get the narrative there. So please God, may we have more unicorns, but in the interim, let's make the middle ones work.
Fantastic. I'm going to jump because we've only got 2 minutes 45 seconds. So I'm going to quick questions. We've got one in the back corner. We'll take the question. We'll do a very quick fire answer now and just get a couple more under our belt. So to the lady in the back left corner. My left.
I'm just asking one question, and I think this is the most important for me, is that how do you then make it an understanding where the African part of life is going to be one of the things that you create in terms of the, what do you call it? Technology, and then also here we are with a situation where we've got any understanding of aviation, and also how do we put hospitality in port as also part of your
Okay, so I guess what we're saying is like there's so many other industries that maybe don't come in the spotlight that we're talking about there. Aviation, South Africa's got a history of aviation, its airlines, hospitality sectors. We're in the Western Cape, right, one of the biggest tourist hotspots in the world. considerations for other non-traditional, not non-traditional sectors, but sectors that aren't traditionally the focus of tech. Is there any observations or comments on that?
I'll be 20 seconds. We always say our investment mandate is innovation, and that could be anything. So if it's innovative for us, so go find the right investor to have the mandate that matches what you need.
I'll jump in as well. The trick that people are missing is the township economy. Go on a tour to Langa, Google it, to all these places, and you'll see so much potential there. I want to see more of that coming out. Yeah.
Township economy is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. One more point, and then I'll go next.
Last
My
one
last
for me
question.
is we've got this notion. So 30% of all the portfolio companies we work with are under this thing we call non-sexy startups. So they do this thing called trading, and we almost shun them down as like, you're trading, just buying and selling. Yep. But they're really good at it, right? And I'll give an example of one of our most successful.
I'm not going to take your example. I know I'm about to get in trouble. So you can bring your example up for the network. You want the example? Go to him. Final question here. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
I'll get you on that. Yeah.
Hi, Chris Simpson here. I'm from Loop. Coming back to women being invested in, I think women are not born with audacity. It comes naturally to men. You are encouraged. We are frowned upon when we do have audacity. Hence why we are brought up as little girls and you got to keep your head down and those kind of things. And I think once making us investor ready, which is fantastic, you need to add the topic, how to have audacity, because men can get investment on no traction, nothing done. All they have is a pitch deck. We've been working for 3 years working on traction, just creating the proof thereof. So please think about it. Add the topic audacity. Help us train it, because we're not born knowing it. But men, you somehow just born with it, man.
Preach it, woman, preach
it. Is that a question and an answer in of itself? We'll get you up on the panel. Final comments from that point. I think it should be nods of approval, but...
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to spend time with you. And the photos I took was in respect to you, because we want to put it on social media. So thank you.
Any final comments from the panel?
She said it perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay.
Storytelling.
Yeah. Okay. The one you've all been waiting for, obviously. I actually have half a dozen copies of this book, so everybody...
Oh, no, Anthony.
Everybody that actually asks a question will get a copy of the book. You're all my favourite children. But on that note, I'm going to be horrible. Can you get the Menti up? There's one final question. Is that even possible to get that last question up?
Of course.
Okay, so remember the question. Okay, now how are you feeling about the potential of African tech in 2025? We'll crush it. And there we go. The first one on the board. Bouncing back. Okay. It's looking good. It's a big improvement. We had about 30% was not good, no real change. Okay. Positive energy, guys. You've rallied the troops.
That's
well
good.
Done. Right, on that note, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to our panel. Africa Arena, for your fantastic report and your work in the ecosystem as always. Enjoy the networking, have conversations, and we'll see you for next year. Thank you, everybody.
Hold on, guys. Before I see everyone getting up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't leave your seats yet. I need 1 second of your time. Beautiful photographer, can you take a group photo of our panelists? Front, center. I always say stomachs in, boobs out.
Can we get a photo of everyone behind us? Yeah. That'll be cool.
Of course. Can we do one with you guys first, and then we'll take the selfie from the back?
I don't have my phone with me, but I can.
Everyone look at this beautiful lady with the camera over there. Can we give them one more round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen? You let me know when you're done. All right. Do you want to take the photo with the people at the back? Okay. Can we put the lights up, please, AV guys, just for the selfie? Everybody, try and pose as best as you can with your boobs out at the tables. Can we put the lights up so we can do the photo with everyone in the background? Just give the AV guys a second. We can't see anyone, so we need the house lights up. Amazing. Everyone smile. Arms up. Let's go. Woo! Is it good? Amazing. I would like you all to give yourselves a round of applause. And then again to our panelists, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to the Africa Arena team. Thank you to Amazon. Thank you to the AV team. Please follow us on socials and scan the ecosystem code right now to join our WhatsApp channel. We will accept your request. If you need to know what's hot and happening with the Africa Arena circuit, please scan the barcode. Other than that, please make your way to the networking in the foyer, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much again for being awesome.
I won't judge your story.